So I'd like it to start back in your early days. There's so much there that can provide so much value for other people. And I want to go on the premise of my impairment is now my superhero because I love that story angle so much. So this is to capture the early days of where your entrepreneurial spirit started. And sometimes entrepreneurs can't always identify it right away, but when you start to think back to your childhood, you start to see these little things. And so, can you tell me the story of attending the Atlanta Speech School from ages 6 till 9? Because I absolutely love that story.
So I was born with a congenital hearing loss, and I have that. I've had it all my life, and so I'm unable to hear speech, almost 85% of speech, and so I was unable to speak. And unfortunately, doctors and my family at the time, there was a lot of discussion that it was a learning impairment and that I had thinking difficulties, and it was brain impairment, and so I had some sort of handicap, some sort of issues there. But what it was my hearing impairment. I couldn't hear people talking. I didn't understand speech, and so I was unable to talk. Parents couldn't afford paying for the Atlanta Speech School, and so my mother volunteered. After 3 years of working, it's the number one speech pathology school in the nation. And after going there for 3 years, I was able to go into, quote unquote, normal school or public school. And I was happy about doing that. At the same time, it nerve wracking, and to enter school, and everyone had already been there for years. And I was very embarrassed, actually. I felt embarrassed being there. I was real nervous and self-conscious about being there.
I loved the quote you said, I listen to understand and not to win an argument. Can you repeat that quote and sort of elaborate on that again?
Yeah. So what I've worked with a third of the Fortune 50. I've multiple $1 million orders, and in the food business, that's very, very unusual. Many multi-million dollars account. I've taken like Nadine, individuals that have an idea or a recipe, and we've surpassed millions of dollars in sales, and I've done that repetitively. And the reason I've been able to do that is because of the way I listen. And I can remember, I remember specifically one of the first sales calls. I thought was one of the most important corporate sales calls I had with an individual that ended up becoming a multi-million-dollar account, also the largest account for the division, just like the work I did with Dyson and some of the other things. But in particular, I had worked on this presentation for several days, and the buyer just literally threw it on the desk back at me, and so I didn't get. I was a little concerned about that, but at the same time, he's like, "Get out your pen and take notes on the meeting." And so I listened and took notes like I always do, and just followed his directions, and ended up that became the largest client for the division. It was a big account for me. At the same time, the reason I was successful there was because of my listening. I listened, and that was what allowed me to go forward with them. If I had tried to argue with them or try to convince them of something, it wouldn't have been successful.
Oh my goodness. Well, that I can't even imagine like the happiness and joy of that moment. That is incredible. And truly, Tim, I think that it's your ability to listen in such a detailed, intentional, thoughtful way is what helps you get your clients the best, most successful, meaningful results.
Yes.
And I think that's your hidden talent. It's what separates you from your competition in the marketplace. And it's what makes you unique. And I think that's one of your biggest selling points. So that's fantastic.